Okay, welcome. I'm John Slater with Orcas Senior Center, and I'd like to reiterate what Zoom just did for us, and that this presentation is going to be recorded and maybe posted to social media for promotional or educational purposes. Welcome to our fourth presentation of the 2021 season of Meeting of the Minds on Zoom. Thank you for joining us in this virtual venue while Orcas Senior Center, our building remains closed due to COVID. Before we get started, I'm just going to go over some housekeeping. Right now, you'll notice that you're all on mute. You'll find that the microphone icon on the lower left of your screen, it says unmute below it. You'll notice if you click on it, you'll see it says the host is not allowing participants to unmute themselves. This is prevent interference during the presentation. Afterwards, I will change the setting to allow you to use this microphone icon to unmute yourself to ask questions. Next to the microphone icon, you will see the video stop icon. Clicking on it allows you to either be seen or not seen. You may choose whichever is comfortable for you, but it might be nice for Skeet to see his audience. Again, you can toggle back and forth between start and stop using the same icon, which just renames itself. And then lastly, at the top right of your screen, you will find the view icon. And this allows you to change how people are displayed on your screen. You may choose between gallery view, which displays everyone equally, and speaker view, which displays the speaker prominently and minimizes everyone else. So for the purposes of our presentation, I would recommend that you keep it on speaker view so you can focus on Skeet. So with that, I'd now like to introduce our presenter for today's presentation of history of the Bureau of Land Management in the San Juan Islands, past, present, and future. Mr. Skeet Townley. He is the outdoor recreation planner for the San Juan Islands National Monument. Prior to coming to Orcas Island in August of 2019, he spent 15 years in Nevada and Idaho working in recreation and wilderness management for both the Bureau of Land Management and the United States Forest Service. Skeet grew up on Vashon Island in Puget Sound and graduated from Western Washington University. Today, Skeet is going to discuss the properties managed by the BLM and the path to becoming a national monument. He will cover the BLM's soon to be finalized resource management plan, opportunities for public involvement in implementation planning. So with that, I turn it over to Skeet. Skeet, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thanks very much, John.
Okay.
I'm really happy to be here. John and I were just talking earlier today. I was scheduled to do this presentation last March before everything changed. So I'm sure glad to be here and get a chance to talk about it. So yeah, thanks for the introduction. Like John said, my name's Skeet Townley. Skeet's my middle name. James is my first. That causes a little confusion sometimes, but yeah. And I'm the recreation planner for the San Juan Islands National Monument. I've lived here on Lopez for about 18 months with my family. We're really happy to be here, especially right now. Recognize a few folks here today, and hello, and kind of glad. I was worried my boss or somebody might be on, but as of now, no supervisors tuning in that I'm aware of, although we are being recorded, so I'll watch my mouth. But yeah, so I'm really happy to be here. You know, John sort of gave me the direction to put together a presentation that kind of is basically just an introduction to the National Monument and the properties we manage out here, and kind of the path to the Bureau of Land Management, even being a land manager in the San Juan Islands, which is a pretty unique situation compared to what the BLM usually manages. So I put together a presentation for today. If folks are really familiar with the National Monument, some of it might be a little bit basic, and you may have seen some of this stuff before. Full disclosure, most of the presentation I pirated from something they put together to celebrate the monument back when it was officially designated. So some of these pictures might be familiar, and hopefully there'll be some new stuff there. And yeah, I definitely welcome questions or comments towards the end, like John said. And I provided my contact information in the chat box there, so folks can definitely reach out to me directly at any time if they have questions or comments, and definitely be interested in hearing from people. So right now I'll attempt to share my screen and we'll start the presentation. And John, if something is not looking right or anything, feel free to let me know.
Will do.
Okay, can folks see that? All righty, great.
Looking very good.
Okay, so yeah, here we go. The San Juan Islands National Monument. Here's a great picture of Patos Lighthouse with Mount Baker in the background. You know, I've been a BLM employee for the majority of my career with a little bit of time with the Forest Service. And I grew up out here in the Puget Sound and I had no idea that the BLM managed land out here. I went to, like I said, Nevada and Idaho and other places to start my career. And I was more used to, let's see here. I'll try and get the screen to advance here. There we go. Okay. So when most folks think of the Bureau of Land Management and the land we manage, they think of things more like that. Kind of gray sagebrush. That's my son Jones in the background, and that's or in the foreground there. That's San Juan, Idaho, where I worked prior to coming out here. And so, in my mind, and in a lot of folks' mind, this is kind of the typical landscape that the Bureau of Land Management manages. And then out here on the National Monument, we've got things closer to this, which is, you know, a huge departure. This is Iceberg Point, looking to the west and the sun setting. And, you know, that was something that's kind of just intrigued me from the very beginning, is how did the Bureau of Land Management, that usually manages more sort of grazing type lands in the Intermountain West, end up with the land out here in the San Juan Islands. And it's what drew us back here. When the monument was designated, my wife and I both said, oh, one of us will do everything we can to get out here and work here someday. So the BLM, you know, we ended up with some lands out here through kind of a variety of vehicles, but the biggest one is lands that were reserved by the Coast Guard for lighthouses and navigational aids. And as technology advanced and things changed, and these actual, you know, physical manned lighthouses and light stations became less important, the Coast Guard relinquished a lot of these lands, and that's how the Bureau of Land Management ended up with them. So quite a few of our lands out here came through that way. Also direct purchase through the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is a fund that, you know, can purchase land for the public good and for the public use. Here on Lopez, we've had a tremendous involvement from local folks and from really, really interested parties to try and protect more land and, you know, set it aside to be public land and to be protected. And so that's quite a few of these areas here on Lopez came through the LWCF purchases with Iceberg Point and Watmau Bay and things like that. Other lands, we just ended up with them because they'd never been withdrawn from federal ownership. And so we just kind of ended up with them and, you know, finally acquired through exchanges with other agencies, state agencies, with some private donations, things like that, of where we've ended up as the land manager of some of these lands. Okay, there's Point Colville. Nick Teague kneeling down there. He's the person I replaced. There's a strong chance quite a few of you might know Nick. He's a bit of a legend out here, and he's been really, really fun to get to work with before he retired. And now that he's retired, I still lean on him pretty heavily. Here we have Iceberg Point sometime in the spring. These are all here on Lopez, where kind of the bulk of our land is with the National Monument. Cattle Point there on San Juan Island. That's actually a lighthouse that's still managed by the Coast Guard. They own a really small piece of land right around and the building itself, but the BLM manages about 30 acres that surround the light station and they're kind of actively in the process of trying to relinquish that and give it to us. Chadwick Hill here on Lopez. And Patos Lighthouse, like we mentioned earlier, was one of the first slides. So this is one of those lighthouses that was, built by and manned by the Coast Guard for years and years and years until they decided it wasn't necessary for them to own anymore. And so they relinquished it to the Bureau of Land Management. And we just kind of happened to be the next tier down on the list as far as federal agencies. So when they relinquish it, it comes to us and we get to decide if we want it or not. And this is one we decided we did. So let's see, the Patos Island Lighthouse was relinquished from the Coast Guard in 1987. It's on the list of National Historic Register of Historic Places. Pretty amazing place. I've been there a handful of times since I've been here. Last time we went out there was in all the smoke and the fog in July or August, whenever we had so much of that smoke, and it was an eerie experience, to say the least. So Patos Island Lighthouse and Patos Island is kind of managed between the Bureau of Land Management, the San Juan Islands National Monument, Washington State Parks. They're our partner out there. They manage the campground there. And then we've got the Keepers of the Patos Light that some of you might be familiar with. They're the group that's kind of taken over and really been instrumental in restoring and maintaining the lighthouse there, and they provide just a tremendous amount of support to us. With the BLM employees out here in the San Juan Islands, there's two of us. There's myself and then the monument manager, who up until very recently was Marcia Chadney, and she's accepted another position. So right now it's just me, but without our partners like the Keepers of the Patos Light and then many, many other partners, we wouldn't be able to do near the amount of stuff we're able to do out here. So they're instrumental in our success. Along the lines with Patos, we have the Turnpoint light station on Stewart Island. That one was relinquished by the Coast Guard in 1991. It's also on the National Register of Historic Places. And, just another pretty amazing property that's very, very unique to the Bureau of Land Management. We do have a couple other lighthouses. We have Quinta Head in Oregon, and we have Jupiter Inlet in Florida, but Bureau of Land Management doesn't have too many properties like this. The Coast Guard still has an active interest out there at Turnpoint, and then on Stewart Island, we've got the Turnpoint Light Station Preservation Society, similar to the Keepers of Patos Light, just incredibly helpful partners that make sure we're able to accomplish things that on our own wouldn't happen. This last year, the keepers quarters there at Turnpoint Light Station got a brand new roof, and it's beautiful, period correct, with copper gutters and things like that. So it's being really, really well taken care of, thanks to the Turnpoint folks helping us out. And again, huge partners that are extremely helpful to us. And then, so in addition to, islands and the big chunks of islands here on Lopez, the National Monument's over 1,000 acres spread out over 75 rocks, islands, and reefs. And some of them are quite small, less than an acre at high tide. This next slide here, all those little red stars, those are the small rocks and reefs managed by the National Monument. So it's scattered all over the place, San Juan County, Whatcom County. And, a lot of those little rocks don't see a whole lot of visitation, but they're tremendously important to wildlife and, marine mammal haulouts and things like that. So really, really important to the landscape, even if some of them don't see a ton of human visitation. And here we've got Point Colville on Lopez. So National Public Lands Day here on the National Monument is a really big deal on Lopez, and throughout the San Juan Islands. We do the the Great Islands cleanup. Members of all the different islands come together with various agencies from the Park Service and the Bureau of Land Management, San Juan County, and a whole host of volunteer groups and nonprofits. Everybody comes together and does a big cleanup, which is pretty impressive, especially, you know, when it ties all the islands together and everybody can work together like that. There's another picture of Chadwick Hill looking down on Watmau Bay and the beach down there, and Point Colville in the distance. And there's another view of Patos looking back towards Orcas in the background there. You know, Patos is one of our more popular spots with lots and lots of folks traveling there and in all means of watercraft to get there. Another big group here at Watmau Bay. We've been doing quite a few sort of nature hikes or, you know, sort of naturalist outings for these sort of events, and getting quite a few folks really interested in coming out and spending time on the land. Obviously, current situation has slowed things down a little bit, but we look forward to getting back to that. Just another picture of Iceberg Point here. That's one of our favorite places on Lopez. Okay, so you know, these lands in the past have been managed as, you know, kind of your just typical BLM lands where multiple use is the name of the game, and you know, they didn't have a whole lot of specific management towards them, especially with, you know, how unique they are for the Bureau of Land Management. The areas here on Lopez were designated as areas of critical environmental concern in the 90s, so that gave them a little more specific guidance. But for the most part, a lot of these lands were managed just, you know, as your typical BLM lands, which based on the pictures, I think it's pretty apparent they're not your typical BLM lands. Until March 25th in 2013, when the San Juan Islands National Monument was officially designated by a presidential proclamation from President Obama. We got some of our Lopez Islanders there in the picture in the background with Asha. And so this was a big deal, really tremendous kind of citizen-led group out here in the islands to really bring the importance of these landscapes together and highlight, you know, their uniqueness and their need for protection. And so there's Indian Island there in East Sound off of Orcas, you know, and one of the things the presidential proclamation really called out was, you know, the importance of these areas and protecting them for future generations, and you know, the historical and cultural significance of all the San Juan Islands, and you know, recognizing that a long time before the Bureau of Land Management managed anything out here, a long time before even the existence of the federal government, you know, these lands were part of the traditional territories of the Coast Salish folks, and people have been calling them home for thousands and thousands of years. And, you know, the presidential proclamation really worked hard to recognize that and honor that and do our best to continue to protect those resources into the future for generations and generations to come. And a lot of these are, you know, just pretty pictures of the monument, which after having spent 15 or so years in Nevada and Idaho, we can't really, my family and I can't hardly walk around anywhere without being just absolutely amazed by the landscape and the beauty out here. And, you know, that's a huge part of why the monument was designated, is, you know, for folks to be able to enjoy those vistas. Another group there, Watmau Bay. Blind Island there, a small island right by Shaw. That's another one cooperatively managed by the Washington State Parks, and they're a huge partner with us. They tend to manage our campgrounds and all those sorts of things and handle that sort of for us. And then we handle the vegetation and the the areas sort of outside of the campgrounds. Yet another picture of Iceberg Point. It's a fairly picturesque place. So we've got quite a few folks or pictures of it throughout the thing. There's Nick Teague packing out tons and tons of garbage. And that's, that's something that it's been really fun to be a part of out here, is just the pride and the ownership that people that live in the San Juan Islands take over these landscapes, and the energy and effort they put forth to maintaining them, keeping them clean, and educating others in ways to enjoy these areas without impacting them. It's pretty amazing with the number of people and the number of visitors we see out here, how little impact they leave behind. And compared to other places I've been, it's extremely refreshing to see that. Okay. So along with these lands kind of having been managed as just typical BLM lands prior to being designated a national monument, they never really had a management plan, any sort of specific direction, with the exception of the areas of critical environmental concern here on Lopez. So after the monument was designated, the next step was to put together a plan. And we had lots and lots of public meetings. This was prior to my time. Hopefully some of the folks here may have been involved in that effort. But it started in 2015.
FYI, Skeet, you're breaking up a little bit. He cautioned me that he was having some issues over there.
Next slide. There's one of the you guys hearing me at all?
Yeah, you're starting to come through again now.
Okay. It says my internet connection is unstable. Is that any better, John, or are you still frozen?
You're working.
Okay.
Sounds good now.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, just definitely let me know if that becomes an issue again, and I'll do my best to push buttons. Okay, so we needed a resource management plan to manage these areas if it's going to be a national monument, and to do them the justice they deserved. So in 2015, we started our resource management planning process. Like I was saying, this was before my time, but Nick and Marcia and all of our partner agencies and some really, really fantastic members of the public who are extremely involved in the national monument got together, and they started this process to create our management plan, which will guide our management here on the national monument for the next 15 to 20 years once it's completed. We started it in 2015. The last round of public comment periods wrapped up in 2019. And right now the protests and some of the comments for that last period are back in Washington, D.C. and being reviewed. And we really hope to have a finalized plan here in the very near future, which obviously, is a 5 or 6 year process, and a tremendous amount of work's gone into it. So that everyone involved is eagerly awaiting a signed plan that we can move forward with. More probably bird watching or whale watching here at Iceberg Point. Nice shot of Cattle Point Light Station, most likely from here on Lopez. So our resource management plan is a large, couple 100-page document with hundreds of pages of appendix. And it's kind of the 30,000 foot view, the overhead view of our management here on the monument, but it doesn't contain a ton of specifics. So it's really, really general outline for our management here on the monument. And while it's really, really important for me, the next step that we're talking about is something that I'm really excited about and really looking forward to being involved with. And that'll be the kind of the next opportunity for the public to get involved. So we've got the resource management plan, and then I think I'm working ahead of my slides here a little bit, but we'll have our implementation planning. And for me, that's the exciting part. And I think that's going to be the really fun part will be, you know, our implementation planning. And that's where we decide, you know, how things are going to look on the ground, where we're going to place trails, where we're going to place facilities, where we're going to do any sort of vegetation projects or cultural inventories or any of the stuff that, you know, I personally got involved in this work to do that I really enjoy is the work on the ground and interacting with the community, interacting with the visitors here on the National Monument. And so, you know, and that's really the next opportunity for folks who are interested and who are passionate about the monument to get involved. The resource management plan process is fairly close to finished. And so once that's completed, we'll start our implementation planning and our opportunity to really make changes if needed out there on the ground, or to take a look at things and decide there's absolutely no need to make any changes. And that'll be a process where we'll go out to all the communities involved, our partners, our tribal partners, and start that public process over again to interview folks, talk to them about what they're really interested in, what's really important to them out there on the ground. And then, you know, we'll work within our framework of what we can and cannot do to try and make sure we're, any of this implementation planning we're involved in is a benefit to the communities and the landscapes of the monument. Here's Indian Island again with Kwiat, who they've been our great partners. Some of you are probably familiar with them. I think John said they were involved in the last round with the last presentation. And here they're doing some fish surveys there on Indian Island and East Sound. I've got to be involved in a couple of those different there are surveys out there, and it's really, really fun. I mean, I'm recently transplanted from the Great Basin, so the number and the variety of fish that come out of their nets when they're doing these sort of inventories is still really, really fascinating to me and my kids. So we always really enjoy getting to go out with Kwiat whenever we can. Guatemala Bay, that was the first place my family and I ever went out here in the San Juan Islands on Lopez when we came to visit the first time. And you can see why we were enthralled and why tens of thousands of visitors every year to Guatemala Bay are equally impressed. Here's the old monument there on Iceberg Point here on Lopez. Again, one of those areas that was relinquished by the Coast Guard and then happened to come to us as a result. And again, Patos is, you know, exciting from the point of view of implementation planning. We're going to have an opportunity to do some trail work out there and make some changes with our management out there that we really haven't been able to do much of in the past. And so that's one it'll be really, really fun to get to continue to work out there. I'll take a drink of water, excuse me. Prior to coming out here, I was never a huge water person. My wife's a rafter and a guide and all those sorts of things, but just never been a huge water person. And I'm becoming more and more of one every day, whether I want to or not. But for me, having come from where we came from, it's pretty surreal to spend a pretty significant amount of time in sea kayaks for work. And some of the areas we travel to by a whole host of watercraft has been pretty phenomenal. And there's lots of other folks within the BLM that use any excuse they can to come out here and visit, and any excuse they can to get out here and call it a work trip. There's Steve Sabine on the left. He's one of our partners with Washington State Parks. He's one of the managers out there at Patos, and you know, that partnership between us and Washington State Parks is crucial. They have a lot more capability as far as boats and things like that to travel around out here, so we end up hitching rides with them as much as possible. And similar to the two groups with the light stations and the lighthouse, the Washington State Parks and their people are incredibly helpful and give us some capacity to do a whole lot more than we'd ever be able to do on our own. More of the fish surveys there at Indian Island with Russell and Kuyat. More Patos. More Iceberg. So, I mean, yeah, I think, you know, one of the things that's so amazing and interesting for me, I came from an area that we had 500,000 acres to an area out here where we have 1,000 acres. But the visitation on these 1,000 acres is so much greater than the visitation on those 500,000 acres where I worked in Idaho. That really trying to balance the desire of people and the desire of visitors to come experience these amazing places for all the reasons that make them amazing, while managing them and protecting them in a way that allows, you know, the next group of visitors and the next generation of visitors and the folks that have called this place home for hundreds and thousands of years to continue to enjoy them without all of them being degraded is a really interesting balance. And it's something that we think about a lot and we work really hard on. And, you know, aren't necessarily any easy answers or any, you know, simple solutions to allow everybody that wants to enjoy the San Juan Islands to enjoy them while, you know, protecting them as they are, and, you know, in some places trying to restore things back to the way they've been in the past. So it's certainly never boring, and there's never a lack of stuff to do, which is a great thing for work. And there we got Patos again, and a freighter in the distance. I haven't got to spend any overnight trips out to Patos yet, but I'm certainly looking forward to that when it happens. The keepers of the Patos Light and the Turnpoint light station folks are always looking for volunteer docents and things like that for the volunteer work parties. So if you're looking for a way to get out there, these folks are always looking for help, and I can put you in touch with them to my contact information. There's another year of National Public Lands Day. The Public Lands Day t-shirts are always a big deal and a huge draw for folks. So every year we have lots and lots of people who are primarily interested in participating to make sure they get their t-shirt for that year. And quite a few of them have t-shirts going back many, many years into the past. This is usually the last Saturday in September. And it's pretty amazing out here with all the islands coming together and the Great Islands cleanup, and the way all the communities pull together and, you know, sort of claim the island in one fell swoop. More Patos, and there's little Patos there. And I think we're just kind of to the pretty picture point of our presentation. But I think, you know, that's for me, and the limited amount of time I've spent here and the amount of time I've spent working for a variety of public land agencies is just, you know, the uniqueness of this landscape and the uniqueness of the National Monument being something managed by the Bureau of Land Management that really kind of sets it apart and makes it an incredibly special place. And then just the, you know, the passion and the dedication of the volunteer groups and the folks who call this place home, and, you know, the efforts they've gone to protect it, to maintain it, to eventually get it designated as a national monument is pretty inspirational. I get to work with some really fantastic people, and it's a great thing for me to see the commitment and the level of passion that so many folks have brought to bringing this monument into existence. There's our office mascot there at Watmau. Skull Island, there in West Sound. I got to kayak out there last summer for some cultural inventory work, and pretty amazing place just on its own. You know, and that's the amazing thing about this monument is just so many small little unique areas tucked here and there throughout the San Juan Islands. It's a great place to get to explore, and to get to call it works even better. Seem to have a ton of snakes at Watmau. Every time I go there, we run across snakes. Probably one of the more picturesque campgrounds managed by the Bureau of Land Management in the world, I would say. Patos Island looking back towards Orcas. Iceberg. And yeah, one of my passions for work, one of the things I truly enjoy is the environmental education and the outdoor education we get to do with the youth groups and the students. This year, we worked with my daughter's 3rd grade class at Lopez Hill to build trail. We've had several different Leave No Trace trainings with the school district here on Lopez. I got to work with the Orcas Youth Conservation Corps last year, the San Juan Island Youth Conservation Corps, and the Lopez Youth Conservation Corps, which is where I got my start. I got turned on to working in public lands and natural resources field with the Nevada Conservation Corps, and realized how much I enjoyed this work and getting to work outside. So anytime I can work with the youth corps and see them getting outside and, you know, giving back to their public lands, as well as potentially figuring out something they want to do and give them an option for a career path is extremely rewarding, and generally just very enjoyable to get out with the students. There's our rope swing on Chadwick Hill. That's I can get my kids to hike with me to the top because of the rope swing. More often than not, they're not overly excited about going up there unless they get a chance to go visit the rope swing. And then that's usually enough to sweeten the deal to get them up there. The cactus out here, I mean, they're one of my favorite things there at Iceberg. It's really fun to be kind of in that landscape with the Salish Sea, and then right up against there, you've got cactus growing and blooming. Is pretty special. More Watmau. Chadwick in the distance. You know, we're still just enamored with all these views all the time as we travel around out here. And there's Turnpoint again on Stewart Island, pretty amazing place. Another one of my favorites is Keller Bluff on Henry Island. I've only been able to get out there a few times, but it's truly amazing. BLM has just 40 or 50 acres on the very southern tip of Henry Island. And it's the few times I've been able to go out there, it's been unbelievably beautiful. More folks at Watmau. This year, with people not being able to boat into Canada, it seemed like our waters here and our beaches that were accessible by boat were incredibly busy. And so we had a steady stream of visitors at Watmau this year, for sure. There's the Deputy of the Interior, Ken Salazar, who was instrumental in getting the National Monument designated, and a huge help to that process. More pretty iceberg pictures. I do wish I had a picture of the new roof there on Turnpoint, which I'm sure I do somewhere. I just couldn't find it, but they did a beautiful job. It's really neat to see that building being taken care of the way that it is. And I feel like we're closing in on the end here.
Okay, well, that was a great job. I appreciate it. Very interesting stuff. And I think we're going to open this up for discussion or some questions if you'd like. So give me a
Yeah,
sec-
please do.
Okay, give me a second here to affect that change. All right, you've all been given the option to unmute yourselves, so please go ahead and ask your question.
I had a question. I can't remember what it is.
Well, I'll start with a question. I'm curious to know on Iceberg Point, which I just visited last week, what is that? What does that monument represent?
You know, it's so it's there from the Coast Guard days, and I'm going to be 100% honest. I don't have the whole story memorized, but as far as that was a monument when they were surveying the boundary between the United States and Canada, and that was sort of instrumental in getting that boundary established, and it was kind of a monument in a way point for them to establish that boundary.
Okay.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Several years ago, the San Juan Preservation Trust had a campaign to raise funds for Watmo Bight.
Mm-hmm.
What part of that area is the Bight versus what the National Monument is?
You know, so the way I understand it, the Preservation Trust was actively involved in raising the funds where that was eventually, portions of it were eventually purchased and donated to the BLM. And then portions of it were donated to the San Juan County Land Bank. And as far as which piece was which, I'm not 100% sure, but that was one of those conservation purchases that allowed that area to be included in the monument and purchased and then donated to the monument.
Thank you. I
Okay.
have one more question.
Mhm.
And that is, in the process of becoming a national monument, is there federal funding that goes along with that to support the monument and its work?
There is, we have, prior to becoming a monument, there was just some sort of base BLM funding to go to managing the landscape out here. And then with the designated of the monument, there is some specific funding that comes down to us specifically because we are a national monument as far as the maintenance and sort of day-to-day activities out here.
Thank you.
Well, once the plan is management plan is implemented, will these Bureau of Land Management properties start to resemble parks, national parks properties? More signage and restrictions, that sort of thing?
Yeah, there'll be more park-like than your traditional BLM properties, but it will give us the opportunity to go ahead and sort of make a consistent sign plan, consistent trail networks and those sorts of things. Whereas, we haven't quite been able to do some of that without a management plan in place. So it will give us sort of an overarching guidance for a lot of those activities. And, it'll be different than the Park Service, but you'll get a kind of a more uniform appearance across the monument lands.
It's nice to know without all of that in place currently that the impact from visitors is really relatively light. That's encouraging.
Yeah, it really is. I've been quite impressed by the users out here and just, the care they take. And, we have issues here and there, but with the number of people that visit out here, the number of issues we have, in my opinion, is extremely low.
So are all of, somebody else had a question? You're not coming in clear at all. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to because we can't hear, I'm going to allow chat. If people would like to type their questions into the chat, maybe we can answer them that way. So, anybody else have any questions? Are all of these properties, the little rocks and everything, are they all open to the public at this point, or are there any Bureau of Land Management properties that are restricted access?
Currently, they are open to recreational use and to human use. There's a couple different alternatives within the resource management plan that may close some of the extremely sensitive ones, the marine mammal haul outs and things like that. So they could potentially be closed in the future, but at this point, the vast majority of them are open. And yeah, some of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife islands and rocks are closed to human access, so it can be a little difficult to tell which is which sometime. But currently, BLM lands are open to access.
Okay. We do have a question in chat from Aleha. Will lands have restrictions as to who and when people can visit?
You know, potentially there's not a whole lot of restrictions as far as folks accessing them. There will be things in there like, you know, groups over 10 will need a recreation permit, and special groups like weddings or, you know, larger organized events like that might need a permit. We don't have too many actual restrictions as far as timing of visitation or anything like that. Some of the trails will get, you know, will be open seasonally to horses or closed seasonally to other things. But for the most part, there's not a whole lot of restrictions that way.
Okay, we've got another question from Ken. He asks, with the administration change on the federal level, will the management plan be altered?
Good question, Ken. You know, I wouldn't anticipate a whole lot of change in the plan. It's pretty far along. I'm pretty low down here on the list of BLM folks, so I could be wrong on that. But, you know, as far as I think the main impact we're going to see is there probably won't be a lot of movement on the management plan here over the next couple months. And we'll see if we end up with a different BLM director or something like that. They might want to review the plan before it's signed, but I don't anticipate a lot of changes in it.
Okay, Margot Shaw has just asked, though Russell Barsh is not connected with BLM, we should recognize him as being a strong force in the preservation of these lands and providing them with your youth education and stewardship. So Margot would like to thank Russell for that.
Yeah, Mario, I agree completely. You know, Russell and Madrona have put a tremendous amount of effort into these landscapes and, you know, identifying the really unique features and the areas that, you know, are really, really important to be preserved and protected. And I've been out with them several times, both here and on Orcas, and I always enjoy going out with Russell and certainly learn something just about every time. So, yep, I couldn't agree with you more.
So one of the priorities then is also maintaining the landscape. I know Indian Island, they've done so much work with trying to restore the flora and the fauna, and it was talk of opening it up for camping and trails, which would kind of impact that. How is that being resolved or looked at?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there is certainly, you know, a little bit of give and take there with preserving these landscapes and, you know, opening them up for things like dispersed camping. And we've had a lot of discussion about that recently. Quite a few folks have been pretty opposed to the idea of dispersed camping on some of these small rocks and islands. And certainly, you know, an increased use that way would lead to significant impacts or could lead to it. It's still kind of being wrestled with internally here at the Bureau of Land Management, but there's definitely a strong contingent of folks who've come out and, you know, voiced their concern with exactly that thing, with increased use and the impact it would have on some of these really small, fragile islands.
All right. Are there any other questions for our presenter today? If not, maybe I'll just begin to wrap it up. If you have questions after this, I'll be happy to hang out for that. Let's see here. So I would like to thank Skeet for his presentation today on behalf of Orcas Senior Center and agreeing to present in this virtual environment during COVID. So we really appreciate that. And I thank all of you for attending, all of our audience members. If you'd like to support Orcas Senior Center and programming like this, you're welcome to make donations. We suggest maybe $5 if you'd like. You can access our website at orcasseniors.org, and I've entered that in the chat. And there are several donate buttons throughout the site. And you can also donate by check. You can send your contributions to Orcas Senior Center, PO Box 1653, East Sound 98245. That's also in the chat. We have this is our fourth presentation of the season. We have our fifth. We're going to be over into the second half of the season already. And that's going to be next third Wednesday of the month, which is January 20th, 2021 for Meeting of the Minds. And that will be with Tina Whitman, who's the Science Director of Friends of San Juans. And she's going to present Foraged Fishes and the Beach, role of local shorelines in marine ecosystem recovery. Again, that's Wednesday, January 20th, 2021 at 1 p.m. And that's all I have. So if anybody else has any more questions for Skeet, go ahead, or we'll go ahead and just wrap this up.
Yeah, well, thanks very much for the opportunity to be here, everybody. You know, I posted my contact information in the chat there. John has it. You could reach out to us here on Lopez at the National Monument Office. But any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out in the future.
All right. Well, that wraps it up. Thank you so much, Skeet. Thanks to all of you. And we'll see you in a month.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.